I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. We're going to be going over Game 7 Eastern Conference semifinals. How the Detroit Pistons lost tonight. Be going over our quarter notes box score. I see a bunch of you guys asking questions about this offseason. We'll get into that and kind of give you guys an update on the podcast, what to expect with the Pistons Talk Podcast this summer during the offseason. So let's get into the quarter notes for this game, because start the first, we rolled with the same starting lineup: Dana Cesar, Tobias Duran, and very early on, you could tell the nerves were getting to the Pistons. We had two blown opportunities. We had a missed Tobias Harris layup, and then Cade Cunningham overshot Asar Thompson for a lob. Dana Jenkins kept the Pistons afloat to start this first. I mean, he had 5 big points and assisted on a Tobias Harris bucket, but getting him to the free throw line, I should say. But the overall effort from Cleveland, they were just so much more focused and aggressive. They were playing how we played in Game 6. They played very desperate, and it just got to the point where they were grabbing so many offensive rebounds. The Pistons were guarding their three-point shooters whatsoever. Cleveland was able to get into the paint with very little resistance, and we just weren't really closing out on the three-point shooters. Asar Thompson damn near killed Sam Merrill on an offensive charge. Like, I was like, oh my God, man. Like, people are going to think he's got a problem with Sam Merrill, which he probably doesn't. It was just a really out of control play. But after one, Cavs are up 31-22. Donovan Mitchell had a buzzer beater at half court. And it kind of told me, like, okay, this is how this game's going to go. Start the second quarter. Pistons they still were not grabbing rebounds. There were so many rebounds that Cleveland was just getting, and it's just because they wanted it more, and the Pistons were just kind of standing around. Also, we just really weren't moving the ball at all. It was way too much isolation on tough jump shots. I thought in the games that we won in this series, we were able to run a lot of pick and rolls, triple handoffs, backdoor cuts. Like, we were moving without the basketball, but, in the second quarter, we didn't really do much of that. I mean, we missed 9 consecutive shots, and Cleveland goes on a 10-0 run, and Sam Merrill just decided, I'm just going to hit all my threes tonight. And he was just a Pistons killer, in this game. And the interior defense was awful. Like, nobody was even helping whatsoever. No one was protecting the rim, the help side defense, the weak side defense. It was just terrible. And Cavs dropped 64 on Detroit, and we only had 47 at halftime. Now, coming out of halftime, I expected a little bit more resistance from Detroit, but Cleveland was still playing extremely aggressive, and the Pistons had no answer for them. They just came out flat at halftime still. Jalen Duren was frustrated. He picked up his 4th foul. Pistons were over the limit. They were in the bonus at the 6:44 mark, and Cleveland they were going to be in the bonus for the rest of the way, one play at the free throw line kind of just, when I watched this, I was like, this is the type of effort that you usually don't see out of a Detroit Pistons game. Isaiah Stewart fouled Jared Allen after he missed a free throw. Okay? They get the ball back. They shoot more free throws. And it just got to a point where it's just like, getting a foul after someone shoots something because you're just trying to box out, or you're just trying to make sure the opposing team doesn't get an offensive rebound. Like, JB took him out right then and there because he was just playing frustrated, and you weren't picking up Jared Allen whatsoever. I don't know how many times he got you with the same fake. And the defense was just MIA. It just wasn't Pistons basketball. It was 99-73 after 3 quarters of play. And to start the fourth, like, you could just tell they waved the white flag. Like, the game was just over. They went out really sad. I didn't expect this for Game 7. I thought that they would come out a little bit more energetic being at home. I thought they would come out a little bit more focused. That was the worst defensive game I've seen from the Detroit Pistons, not just in the NBA playoffs, these playoffs, but all season. Like, that was a very bad game by them. And it gets to a point where it's just like these players weren't even communicating. They weren't boxing out. They weren't passing the ball. It's like maybe the nerves got to them. Maybe they were like, it's a game 7 and Cleveland is just playing like so great. Like, I thought Cleveland's defense in the paint was excellent. I thought the rotations were really great. Their half court sets were like incredible. Like, Donovan Mitchell and his passing tonight was really good. And I think the Pistons just had a really hard time, staying in front of their guards and Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and they weren't able to, really get the ball out of their hands. And they were so worried about them going into the paint that they weren't guarding the 3-point line, and Cleveland was able to take advantage of that. But just, final score in this one was 125-94. Cleveland does advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they will see the New York Knicks. I believe that starts on Tuesday. New York does have home court advantage in that one, so first game will be at Madison Square Garden. I don't know if you guys saw the ticket prices. Holy crap. I thought ticket prices were a little bit bad here. Ticket prices for a New York Knicks game are actually insane. It's like a mortgage almost. It's pretty crazy. The FanDuel odds on this game were kind of in the Pistons' favor. They were 4.5-point favorites going into this game. Even, they thought that the Pistons were going to win this one, but they didn't. End of the season, they get eliminated. I do want to kind of get into the box score, and then we'll open up the show to comments and questions. I see a lot of questions about offseason, who should we keep? I will kind of get into what to expect with the podcast going forward. Obviously, we're not going to have any post-game podcast because the season is over. But let's get into the box score so you guys can kind of just see just the overall effort from the players. We'll start with the starters. Tobias Harris, 23 minutes, 5 points. One thing I will say, he had a pretty good playoffs, but the last 3 games, he just wasn't himself. It's not even like he was taking bad shots. It's just shots that stopped falling. Like, the aggression still wasn't really there from him. 5 points in an elimination game. I know 76ers fans are going to have a freaking field day with Tobias Harris only putting up 5 points. I already know it. It's probably already on the timeline. It's like, see, we tried to tell you guys about Tobias Harris, but he will be a free agent at the end of after this season. So Pistons bring him back, I'm not sure, but that's $26 million off your books right there. He also had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, 1 block, minus 23 in the plus minus. Jalen Duren, 26 minutes. He had 7 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 blocks. He was a minus 18. I thought Jared Allen did a very good job of containing him and Evan Mobley. I was kind of surprised that they were able to contain Jalen Duren, but he's had a really bad playoffs, dating back to the Orlando Magic series and this series. He had a good game in game 6 and he had a good game in game 7, but I mean, that's 2 games out of 14. And I know a lot of people are wondering, like, what is going to be going on with Jalen Duren with contract negotiations, because he is up for a new contract. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that was a max level effort, and I think the organization understands that. I think Jalen Duren understands that. Just becomes a figure with the Pistons and Duren's camp. Like, what are they comfortable with doing? Don't think you're getting that 40, 50 million that you were seeking. You're probably closer, in my personal opinion, and like I said, this is my opinion, I could be completely wrong. I think you're probably in the ballpark anywhere between like 19 to, I think the highest you could probably see is maybe 28, 29 million. And it's a big fluctuation. I just don't think he's a max level player. I do understand that he's still young and he's developing, and he's only 22 years old, and there's a lot of growth for him offensively and defensively. But I don't think you can afford to overpay Jalen Duren. And again, there will be other teams out there that might try to match him in restricted free agency. I don't really see too many teams trying to overpay a Jalen Duren in restricted free agency. Even though the Lakers have cap space, the Bulls have cap space, I don't see them, throwing him like 40 million. I just don't see it. I just don't. But it'll be interesting to see what does happen with Jalen Duren. But again, elimination game, you dropped 7 points. Wasn't really that productive. Cade Cunningham in an elimination game as well. He struggled 37 minutes, 13 points, 5 out of 16 from the field. Didn't hit a three where, going into these playoffs, he was shooting over 40% from three, 0 for 7. 3 for 3 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. He was a minus 32. He was actually the worst player in the plus minus tonight. He just looked very gassed and uncomfortable all night anytime he had the basketball. Cleveland did a really good job of sending a second defender to make him uncomfortable. But I expect the Cade to actually, turn up because he was at home. Last game, game 5, he had a really good game in game 5, almost dropped 40 points. But that's not what I was expecting in an elimination game from him. Star Thompson, 29 minutes, hit 5 points, 2 out of 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, 7 rebounds, 1 turnover, 2 blocks. That turnover was basically a Roman Reigns spear. It's insane. They get a little technical foul there with he didn't get a technical foul, but him and Max Spears kind of got into it. I don't really know why Max Spears was upset. Maybe because the star went up for a ball and he fell down. I don't know, but he had a minus 14 in the plus minus. Wasn't really the performance I think that the Pistons needed out of Star Thompson tonight personally. Going to need more than 5 points out of your starting small forward, and I know a lot of people are expecting him to have a big offseason, expecting him to be more of an offensive factor next season. I expect him to be more of an offensive factor, expect him to be in the gym all summer working on that jump shot because, when you're playing with Cade Cunningham, Cade, we know he can get his, but you're going to need your starting small forward to contribute a little bit more offensively. And I think he will get better. I just don't know how much progression he's going to have in one offseason, but we'll have to wait and see. Danius Jenkins, 34 minutes, had 17 points, shot 4 out of 12 from the field, 2 out of 7 from 3, 7 out of 8 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 turnover, minus 15. Honestly, I wasn't really too mad that JB decided to roll with Danius tonight just because he had such a good 2 games while Duncan was out. Duncan did miss 1 game due to injury. Wasn't really too mad at it with the decision, but Duncan did come off the bench and he probably played the best offensively, I would say. Defensively, he had a really bad game. But offensively, in 22 minutes off the bench, he did have 13 points. He was 4 out of 7 from the field, 3 out of 5 from 3. Had 1 rebound, 1 assist, 3 turnovers, 1 steal, a minus 20. B-Ball Paul in 8 minutes only put up 4 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 offensive rebounds. This is probably the first game out of him where it was just kind of like an average game from him. Like he didn't really have the impact that he had from game 1 to game 6. He just didn't. And I think it was just Cleveland's paint defense tonight. They did a really good job of identifying him anytime he had the ball in his hands. Tolu Smith, garbage time, 5 minutes, 4 points. Good for him. He got a standard contract from the Pistons at the end of the year. Stu, 6 minutes, 3 points. I still think he's hurt. I just do. Like the minutes just kind of signify there's something there. Like you don't play him 6 minutes. You just don't. And obviously he was pretty, I would say, underwhelming would be my word, just because the Magic series defensively, I thought he was excellent protecting the rim. I still go back to that 8-block game. I think something happened from that 8-block game to this series because it just seemed like he didn't have the same timing and the same lift of protecting the rim. And like you can look at his box scores and just his time logs, like anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes all this series. And obviously, you were still playing Duran close to 30 minutes a game, and Paul Reed had stepped up, but definitely think there maybe an injury. I'm not sure. He says he's not injured. Did the whole piece with the Detroit News saying that speculation is fine, but you guys can kind of see didn't really look like himself. Ryan Holland did get garbage time, which I was really surprised that they didn't play him, considering how many points they were down and they needed stops. But he cashed in 3 points and 2 rebounds in 6 minutes, and finished the game with a +4. Karis LeVert, 17 minutes, had 11 points. Also grabbed 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot 3 out of 5 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. Marcus Sasser had a really bad game. 23 minutes, 9 points, 3 out of 12 from the field, 3 out of 9 from 3, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. Cleveland did their homework on Marcus Sasser. They made his night very difficult. Chaz Lanier in 5 minutes did attempt 2 shots, but didn't really do anything except for 1 assist in garbage time. And Javonte Green and Kevin Huerter do not play coaches' decisions. But as you guys can see, the whole team just shot a very miserable percentage, really outside of Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. The 2 vets on this team actually shot a pretty decent percentage, but the overall effort defensively was really, really bad. It was really, really bad. As you guys can see, Cleveland shot 51% to Detroit's 35%. And they both shot the same amount of shots. They both attempted 85 field goals in this one. Cleveland shot 32% to Detroit's 31%. Cleveland was 11 out of 34. Detroit was 12 out of 39. Cleveland shot 64% from the free throw line, where they made 28 out of 44 attempts. Detroit shot 76% from the free throw line, where they shot 22 out of 29. Cleveland out-rebounded Detroit 50-41. They had 14 offensive rebounds and 36 defensive rebounds. Detroit had 10 offensive rebounds and 39 offensive rebounds. Assists, Cleveland out-assisted them by 10, 31-21. Got more steals than them, 10-7. Detroit did have more blocks, 5-4. We did have more turnovers, 15-13. Points conceded off turnovers. Detroit had 22. Cleveland had 17. Fast break points. Cleveland did beat them by 1, 12-11. Points in the paint. Cleveland owned it, 58-34. And the broadcast said that was the lowest points in the paint total, not only in these NBA playoffs by the Pistons, but all season long. Cleveland did such a good job of jamming and clogging the paint and taking that away from the Pistons. And I think you saw them just try to shoot their way out of it because they were just so afraid of trying to get into the paint and generating looks that way. And, it worked. That was their game plan, and it worked. Cleveland had 22 fouls to Detroit's 31 and 1 technical foul apiece. Asar had 1 at the end of the third quarter, and Max Strus had 1 after his little dust up with the Asar. Yeah, man, that was just – I do want to say this, though. I'm not even mad. I'm not sad. I am disappointed. I am just disappointed. I'm disappointed in the effort of the Game 7, right? I'm disappointed that was just the energy, coming out of the first quarter. They seemed really nervous. There was no adjustments. JB tried each time out telling them, we got to guard the 3-point line. He did his best at telling them, hey, guys, we have to make these adjustments and we'll be okay, but they never did. Cleveland's willpower was just stronger than anything that the Detroit Pistons could do tonight. It was really bad. It was honestly really bad. I do think that this team, though, as constructed, is a good basketball team, but there are definitely holes on this roster. I think there are some upgrades you can make this offseason. I do think that the power forward position could use an upgrade. I do think you don't really have a long-term shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham. I don't think Danis Jenkins is an everyday shooting guard next to Cade. I think Danis is more of a guy that can be a sixth man for you. He can, be the first guy off your bench for you. He can lead your second unit. You can leave him out there at Cade if it's a close game, but I don't think he's an everyday two guard. I do think that there are players in this draft that I do really like. I really loved Cameron Carr, but I don't think he's going to be there at 21. You might have to trade up for him. He just had like a 30-point outburst in the NBA Combine. If you guys had a chance to check him out, really good, intriguing two-guard in this draft. But, overall, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the NBA draft, via trade, I think the Pistons will be active. I do. But I'm just really disappointed with just the effort tonight. But I do want to kind of get into Q&A with you guys. I'll be going over all the comments as you guys leaving, and then we'll have a chill rest of the podcast, kind of just outlooking, this game, what to expect this offseason for the Detroit Pistons, and, a little podcast update for you guys. We will be right back after a quick break. Okay, guys, we're back. I want to get into Q&A. Before I get into that, what to expect with offseason content from me and some guests that we'll be having on. So we're going to dive straight into offseason content on this podcast. We're going to be getting into NBA draft coverage, but I don't know how many times a week we will be recording. Like throughout this season, I mean, you could go back to preseason to the playoffs. We were doing about anywhere from 3 to 5 podcasts a week. There's not enough NBA content to do podcasts 3 to 5 times a week. So we'll probably go down to maybe once or twice a week. If there is news, I might do a short little podcast here and there. I did want to kind of update you guys on content going forward. If you're an audio listener, if you're a YouTube subscriber, just know that we will be kind of going into our off-season content and kind of just reflecting on this season and who the Pistons could draft with their first round pick this year, which will be 21 overall. What could they do in free agency? What moves could be made? I do see a lot of you guys asking those types of questions in the live chat right now. But let's kind of get into all the questions you guys are leaving. So, first one we're going to be putting on the screen is from Marquez. He always gets the first one. In sports, you just need to shake your opponent's hand. Cleveland played well. The Pistons didn't. The future is now. Great season. Overall, yeah, like it was a good season. And I know a lot of people right now, they want to hear how great the season is, and I completely understand that, especially when you forced the Game 7 and you were one game away from making the Eastern Conference Final, something you haven't done in 18 years, since 2008, against the Boston Celtics. But overall, it was a good season. Now, Cleveland is a team that is a second apron team. They had very high playoff aspirations. There's a reason why they traded for James Harden. I did see a lot of Cleveland Cavaliers. Talk with the players, shake hands after. A lot of love for Danish Jenkins. Like James Harden talked to him for a little bit. Donovan Mitchell talked to him for quite some time. They definitely know who he is now, because I think before the series, maybe they weren't really too familiar with his game, but they were really impressed with him, probably just the way he was defending, hitting shots, and just being an Energizer bunny out there. But yeah, I mean, you have to move on. It was a good season. You can reflect on the season, first 60-win season in quite some time. But I know a lot of Pistons fans right now, they could give a shit about a 60-win season when you just forced another Game 7 and you lost. And it's the way you lost. It's not even that you lost in a Game 7. It's getting blown out on your home floor. I think that's where more Pistons fans are at. It was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing of how you played. It was embarrassing how Cleveland went in there and punched you in the mouth for a full 48 minutes and you did nothing about it. I think that's where I'm at. I think just the overall effort on both ends of the floor was very disappointing to watch. Like I told you guys earlier, I'm not even sad, I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed how they played, because in this series, like Game 6, like I was like, you replicate that, you're probably advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. But the team in Game 6 versus Game 7, I didn't recognize that team in Game 7 whatsoever. Did not recognize them at all whatsoever. Alec Jasper, awful effort tonight, but amazing year. Keep building around Cade and the star. Future is still bright. Yeah, the future is bright. I could still be very frustrated with this loss, be disgusted with the effort, but you have a franchise guard in Cade Cunningham. You have a cornerstone piece defensively with Asar Thompson. We just need him to develop some sort of offensive game. But yeah, you have pieces. You have intriguing pieces, but the future is bright. This isn't me crashing out saying trade everyone, fire JB Bickerstaff. I'm not saying that. I see some Pistons fans saying that already. Fire JB because we lost in the second round, when I'm sorry, a lot of Pistons fans that have been tuning in during the playoffs didn't see it last year. I didn't see it this year until maybe April. Like I'll just say that a lot of these Pistons fans are bandwagons. I'm just gonna say it. I do think there are adjustments to make. I do think there are roster moves to make. But you're not gonna fire a coach that has brought you the most success you've had in 18 to 20 years. I think it's kind of crazy for fans to say that. Is JB a perfect coach? No. Is he a flawed coach? Yes. Do his rotations kind of frustrate me at times? Absolutely. But I think he can grow and get better as a coach. You're not going to fire him after a 60-win season. He just got a contract extension, so he's not going anywhere. I'm just kind of ranting a little bit, seeing some Pistons fans saying we should fire him because we lost. It's crazy. I see another comment from MWNK. I'm sorry, but I would have rather been swept in the Eastern Conference Finals than lose a Game 7 at home by 30. Yeah, I get it, man. Like losing by 30 at home is embarrassing. I don't know if I would have rather got swept by the Knicks, because Knicks fans are a whole different breed. Like you guys think Cleveland fans are obnoxious. Knicks fans are the king of being petty. They will bring stuff up. Like I got Knicks fans. I wasn't even in this argument, by the way. I got tagged, and shout out to Eric Vincent. I got tagged in his bullshit. Knicks fans bringing up something he said back in February. I mean, they dig shit up. Like they bookmark stuff. They are a different breed of basketball fan. But I don't think I would have rather got swept by the Knicks, because they wouldn't have shut up. Like they still played the Jalen Brunson cross on Asar Thompson anytime you talk like shit to them. It's just so infuriating. Eastern Conference Finals are going to be a bloodbath. They definitely are, but I would not rather get swept by the Knicks. Losing by 30 hurts, but I wouldn't have wanted to get swept by them in the Eastern Conference Finals if that was like the options. I have a couple of comments. I want to get into this one, which I kind of disagree with. This team would have an excuse of making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and would make no changes to this team, needs drastic changes to play meaningful playoff basketball. I do think there will be changes. I don't think they'll be drastic. Drastic to me would be trading like Asar and Duran just because you don't think they're good enough. I don't think that is going to be the case. I do think they will make changes. I do think they will upgrade power forward. I do think that they will upgrade their bench a little bit. I think you need more ball handling next to Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham cannot have the ball in his hands 95% of the time and expect to win a playoff series. I love Cade, but he needs a secondary ball handler and he needs a second option next to him. I don't think you have to make drastic changes to be able to be playing meaningful basketball in 2027. I still think that the Pistons will be a top-seeded team in the Eastern Conference, and that kind of gets into our next comment from VM GCC. The East will be stronger than ever next season. I think it will. You're right. Like, you're going to have a healthy Tyrese Halliburton in Indiana, who made the finals last year. He's going to be back. They traded for Zubac. They have a very fun team. They still have Pascal Siakam. I'm just thinking about all the players on their team. Like Andrew Nebhardt's a good player. Like Pacers are going to be better, and they're in your division. Who knows what happens with Giannis? I think Giannis does get traded. I don't know what conference. He could stay in the East, but Milwaukee's going to get worse. Chicago's going through a rebuild, so you don't really have to worry about Chicago. Like the only two teams in the Central Division that are probably going to make the playoffs are going to be the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Cavs. Like I think the Cavs will still be a pretty good team. It looks like they're going to ink a new deal with James Harden and possibly Donovan Mitchell. So you'll have three teams in the Central Division making the playoffs. I think Boston will be better once Jason Tatum has a little bit more time to heal with his torn Achilles. They still have Jaylen Brown. Even though Derek White shot like crap in the playoffs, I think he will play better in the playoffs when he's not kind of in a role where he's not really used to it. He had to kind of step up this season. They still have a bench in Peyton Pritchard. Their only weakness right now is center. Their front court, really. I think Boston will be very active of trying to get better in the front court. So I expect Boston to be in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. I don't think Toronto's going anywhere either. Toronto's a very good young team, much like the Pistons. They have dynamic guards. That Yoko Pirtle contract's kind of big, though. I wonder what they do with that. I don't know if he's a long-term center for them. I expect Toronto to be in the playoffs next year. Atlanta, once they made the trade for CJ McCollum, they just went on an absolute tear to end the regular season. Atlanta, I think, is on the rise with Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think Orlando, it'll be interesting to see who they hire as a coach. I think it's going to be Billy Donovan, but I could be completely wrong. Orlando, to me, I think just needs more offensive talent. We know they can defend. Like we saw it in the first round. Like they can defend their ass up. They just need more offensive talent. I think Orlando will definitely be a threat if they can stay healthy. That has been their problem the past 2 seasons. They haven't been able to stay healthy. I think Detroit will be in the top 5, top 4, in my personal opinion, in the Eastern Conference playoffs, even with a healthy Boston and a healthy Indiana. You got New York as well. Like the East is pretty deep. I'll have a hot take. I think the East is going to be better than the West next year. We've had so many years of the Western Conference as being this juggernaut. I think the Eastern Conference is going to be better than the Western Conference next year. But I see a lot of people, especially when we're talking this year, that they thought this was the one year for the Pistons to go for it because Boston didn't have Tatum for a majority of the year. Tyrese Halliburton was out all year. And you had 2 teams that had deep playoff runs. And they thought it was the year to make a big trade, make a big splash. I don't really know what was out there. I don't know. I don't know if Michael Porter Jr. was gettable. I don't know if Trey Murphy was gettable. I don't know how serious the Lauri Markkanen talks got. Even though I keep seeing that rumor from Shams Charania, apparently the Pistons are going to make calls about Trey Murphy, Lauri Markkanen, Michael Porter Jr. This summer. I don't really know how serious those talks will actually get. But I do think the East will be stronger. I still think that the Pistons will be at least in that top 4, top 5 seeding next year. And it really all depends, like, what do they come out in the draft with? Do they keep their draft pick? Do they make that big swing that we're anticipating and expecting from talking to people, off the record saying like, yeah, the Pistons are probably going to go for it. Trajan has all the evidence and data he needs with this team going forward. Like, you have Cade, you have corner pieces, you have draft picks, you have draft capital to go, including trades. Like, what are you going to do to surround Cade Cunningham with? Because I think for the next, 5 to 7 years, you're going to be pretty good in the East. And that might sound like a hot take right now. It might. As long as Cade stays healthy, I like the Pistons' chances of being in the East playoff picture. I really do. And another comment, what players should go from Detroit? So if you look at free agents, you have Tobias Harris, who's on an expiring deal. Did they bring him back? I'm not sure. I know Tobias does like it here. I don't think the Pistons could afford to bring him back at a $26 million salary. Don't really know what he's feeling. There's reports that teams like the Lakers could be interested in Tobias Harris, and several other teams around the NBA will be interested in his veteran services if he still wants to play, because I think he'll be going into year 16 next season. You got Javonte Green, who signed a 1-year deal. Don't really know what his future holds in Detroit. Was it just kind of like a one and done? He doesn't come back, and you try to maybe give Ron Holland more of his minutes next year? I'm not sure. Do you try to find a defensive specialist in the draft, which I really hope you don't, help you kind of just try to find that in free agency or via trade, like maybe just like a really small move to kind of fill out your roster? Not sure. So Tobias and Javonte, I'm not really sure what their future holds. Danius Jenkins is interesting, and the reason why I'll say he's interesting is because his contract isn't fully guaranteed, meaning that the Pistons have a team option and they can decide whether or not they want to bring him back. I'm under the assumption they do bring him back because his contract is very cheap, very, very cheap. Duncan Robinson is another player that is on a deal that is non-guaranteed. This season, his contract was fully guaranteed. The final 2 years of his contract, going into 27 and going into 2028, they're non-guaranteed. So the Pistons could cut or waive Duncan Robinson at any point to save money if they really want to get more cap space that way. I'm not sure if they're going to do that, though. I'm not sure. He's another player to kind of keep an eye out for, just because of the contract, and it's pretty unique. You don't really see 3-year contracts where just 1 year's guaranteed. But there's a lot of players on this roster that are still on rookie deals. I mean, you got to make your mind up like what you're doing with Sasser as well. Saw him in the playoffs these past 2 games. Didn't really have an everyday role with this team. It was really sporadic. Seemed like he only played if there was injuries or a garbage time. Like, is he on this team next year? Not entirely sure. But you still have your core intact. You still have Cade. You have to decide what you're doing with Duran, which probably gets re-signed, just not with the max deal like he wants to. Star's still under contract. Stu's still under contract. Ron's still on his rookie deal. Chaz Lanier is still on his rookie deal, which we didn't really get to see a whole lot of Chaz this year. You waive Bobby Klitman, who's no longer on the roster. Your core is intact. It's just kind of surrounding Cade with better pieces, so he doesn't have to look so gassed in a Game 7. My question is, how do we feel about JB? I've got my opinions. I'm just curious about everyone else. I can give you my opinion. I think JB as a coach is exactly what this team needed coming off of Monty Williams. Not to say that Monty was a bad coach, but I think we can just call a spade a spade. He didn't want to be here, and that was so clear and so evident when he was here. He was actively trying to get fired. His mind was not in the coaching, and you could see that. I think with JB, I like his just overall communication with the players. The players speak very highly of him, and I think they love playing for him. I think my only nitpick issue with JB is the rotations at times are a little maddening. We got to just talk about these playoffs. Like, Jalen Duren wasn't really playing his best we could just say, we can just kind of take the kid gloves off. He wasn't playing his best basketball, right? I think a lot of us were like, why keep rolling with Jalen Duren when Paul Reed was playing so well? I think the rotations, and that's just one example. I think the rotations with JB, I'd like to see get a little bit more tighter and consistent. I mean, there were so many times during the regular season when Asar was getting substituted out and it was a close game. I think the rotations to me are nitpicky, but I do think he can get better at them. And that's all I'll really say. I like him as a coach. I know some people are trying to compare him to like a Rick Carlisle of like, eventually the Pistons are going to have to find, their Larry Brown. I don't think there's a Larry Brown out there actively. I just don't. I don't think there's a championship level coach that you just around and can bring you a title like 04. I think they're two different, completely different situations. And I want to see how far JB can take this team. Like, if we're still having these same issues during the regular season and the playoffs again, then you can start having a conversation. But I think for right now, you got that contract extension. I think the organization likes what he's brought over these past 2 years, bringing them the most success that they've had in over 18, most success ownership's had with any coach. So I like him, but I know that he's not a perfect coach and he does have his flaws. Hope we can sign Malik Beasley this offseason. I will say this. Malik Beasley is playing over in Puerto Rico, right? I personally think that whatever is taking so long with his investigation, I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he's going to get convicted and like be at like a Terry Rozier situation. I just don't know. What I will say though is if he is innocent and he's able to sign with an NBA team, I wouldn't be opposed to re-signing Malik Beasley. Again, he's got to get cleared. He's got to get cleared by the NBA. Right now, he's still under investigation. He's playing basketball over in Puerto Rico, getting his bread that way. So shout out to him for that. But I've never seen an investigation take this long, especially for a guy that we don't know whether he's guilty or not. I know Terry Rozier's case took quite a long time, and the only reason why it really took time is because it was this whole gambling probe with so many different players that were involved. I don't really know if Malik Beasley's case is even anywhere involved with like the Chauncey, the Terry Rozier, the Damon Jones. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that. But, if he is cleared, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but he does have to get cleared to, play basketball again. It's just like that whole free agency was just so weird. So weird to me. It really was. I want to get into a couple more comments and questions with you guys. What's the priority for this offseason? I'll give you guys my opinion. I think the priority is you have to get better at power forward. I love me some Tobias Harris. I love me some Unk. He did an amazing job these past 2 years. He really did. I don't know what his future holds with the Detroit Pistons, but what I will say is I think you have to get younger at that position. You have to get more athletic, in my personal opinion. Now, whether that's just saying, what do you want for Trey Murphy, New Orleans? We got draft picks. We got players. Like, what do you want? Like, do you kind of do that? I don't know. Is there a forward in this draft class that you like? Not sure. I mean, I know a lot of Pistons fans are very high on Yaxel, but Yaxel to me is a lottery pick. You're at 21. What would you have to trade up to go get a Yaxel? Yaxel's 23, so he's an older prospect. He's actually came out of the same draft class as Kate Cunningham, believe it or not. I don't know if Yaxel to me would be worth giving up too many assets, but I like him as a player. I think he's a perfect archetype of what the Pistons need at power forward. To me, you have to get better at power forward, and you have to get a secondary ball handler. you have to get someone that can take pressure off Cade Cunningham going into next season. You can't just rely on him to have the ball in his hands so much. I know Asar Thompson has kind of been that secondary ball handler at times, but again, Asar Thompson to me does have great vision, but I don't really, need him to take the secondary ball handler options. Personally, I wouldn't be opposed if Asar wants to bring the ball to the court, a few possessions a game. Like, I'm not opposed to that, but I think you need a secondary ball handler next to Cade to kind of take the stress and pressure off him. So to me, secondary ball handler, whether that's a backup point guard, whether that's a 2 guard, power forward to me is like 1 for me. Possibly getting a secondary ball handler would be 2. And anything else really, I think, would just kind of be like a wish or a want. I think you have to get better at power forward. It's just not even an option to me. I'm going to get into a couple more comments and questions, and then we'll wrap this podcast up. See some Knicks fans going in here saying, "Go Knicks." Honestly, I'll just say this for the Knicks fans that are in here. I think the Knicks will take care of the Cavs pretty easily. I don't really think the Cavs are going to be a good matchup for the Knicks. I just don't. I think Mitchell Robinson, to me, will be a very big X factor for the Knicks. That's just me. But I think the Knicks will definitely handle the Cavs. See a couple comments from Michael. I know he's dropping a ton of comments. Ryan Rollins for secondary ball handler and AJ for more threes. I love Ryan Rollins, actually. Ryan Rollins is a very good player out of Milwaukee. I don't know what Milwaukee does, though, Michael. It kind of looks like that they're trending toward a rebuild. I don't really know what's going to happen with the Giannis situation. I don't know where he's going to go. Seems like it's so toxic to the point where they're not even speaking to each other. But I like Ryan. I like a lot of their 3-point shooters. I know you had mentioned AJ Green. AJ Green to me would be such a seamless fit. He's kind of under the same role as a Sam Merrill, who we just saw, who just went nuclear against us. But kind of those, 2 guards that can play off ball, that can just come off screens, really active. I really like Green from Milwaukee. There's a lot of underrated players on the Milwaukee Bucks, actually. But yeah, man, this offseason content is going to be really fun. We're probably going to be doing a podcast very soon, probably sometime next week, kind of just recapping this season. I'm still going to be confirming with the guests whether they can come on to make time. But I'm going to wrap up this podcast, you guys. We've been on for almost 50 minutes, so appreciate all you guys tapping on in all season long. It's been a really long season. I think we did almost 130 shows. And that's dating back all the way to Summer League when we were doing post-game shows there. On the weekend podcast, on the post-game podcast, all the playoff post-game podcasts. But I appreciate each and every one of you that had supported the podcast all season long. Again, we'll be doing the off-season content during the summer, giving you guys some Pistons podcasts, but maybe not as much. But hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday night. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.